Welcome to the Greater Seattle Intergroup Tradition Study. My name is Elise and I am an alcoholic and your secretary for today's meeting. May we take a moment to reflect on the reasons why we are here, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity
to accept the things
I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have asked Joel to read the 12 Traditions, a distillation of AA experience taken from the 12 Traditions illustrated pamphlet, which I am sharing on my screen.
Thanks, Elise. I'm Joel. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Joel. Hi, Joel.
As newcomers, many of us say to ourselves, let the group officers worry about the traditions. I'm just an average member. There are rules for running groups, aren't they? And everybody tells me there are no rules in AA. Then we look closer and find that the traditions are not rules, and they are not just for officers. They have deep meaning for each one of us, as the 12 steps do. Like the steps, the traditions were not figured out in advance as courses of action against future problems. The action came first. Pioneer AA groups with nothing to go on except the trial and error and try again method soon discovered, well, that way didn't work, but the other one did, and this one works even better. Both successes and failures were reported in letters to AA headquarters, eventually to become the General Service Office. In went these shared experiences of AA's first 10 years, and out came the 12 Traditions. In 1946, then in the long form, they were published in the AA Grapevine. By 1950, they had been condensed to their present form and were adopted by AA's first international convention. Our traditions are a guide to better ways of working and living, co-founder Bill W. said, and they are to group survival what AA's 12 steps are to each member's sobriety and peace of mind. Most individuals cannot recover unless there is a group. The group must survive, or the individual will not.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. The format of today's study meeting is that we will have a panel presentation with time allocated afterward for open sharing and any questions. A reminder to us all that we are growing in our understanding of these principles and why they are so vital to our fellowship. Today's meeting will be based on our experience and understanding of tradition number 2. Is it still 2? Yeah, still February, 2. Corresponding number for the current month, still February, just clarified. I have asked Mark to read tradition number 2 for the current month.
Hi there, Mark, alcoholic.
Mark in the dark.
Mark in the dark, that's right. I'm in my vehicle. Okay, so tradition 2 short form, which is actually longer, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. I will now turn it over to Dan G.
I'm Dan G, alcoholic.
Dan.
This used to happen all the time in my rap career. I'd be rapping and then someone's like, let's record it. And then I could never kill it after that. I'm just joking. So how I looked at this tradition, I kind of just broke it into pieces. There's like major bullet points in here. From the very jump, all kind of, to me, it's all pointing towards a collective awakening. So for our group purpose, bam, we haven't even gotten started, and now we already have to look at what tradition 5 is. Does anyone have tradition 5 queued up? Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I think that's beautiful because there's so much distraction. There's so much, I forget why I go to meetings sometimes. And so to have that at the very start of this tradition is super cool. We have a primary purpose that the whole meeting might want to be about. And it's cool to see if our opinions are in line with the traditions. It's a fun exercise. For our group purpose, there's but one ultimate authority: a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. So I highlighted, I circled, I underlined loving God, because I don't know how to find a loving God by myself. I don't know what that looks like. I had to have a sponsor show me the work in the book to be able to figure out my own loving God before I could express anything. So yeah, I mean, I think to me, this points to strong sponsorship, or at least some kind of sponsorship that helps put me in touch with this power. And on page 45 of the big book, it says, where and how were we to find this power? And then it says, that's exactly what this book is about. Yeah, group conscience. I think here, I guess there's a difference between a informed group conscience and a group conscience. And it's really cool because an informed group conscience is where everyone gets to say their part, their opinion. All opinions get heard in a business meeting. And then we can reach substantial unanimity, which I thought that was a made-up word. I didn't think unanimity was a real word, but this guy who was teaching me about service was saying it like it was legit. So I'm just copying him. Yeah, for a group conscience, there's but one a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. So I have an example of a group conscience, and it's really cool because a lot of times if you pay attention, they're read at the start of the meeting and we can figure out what kind of meeting we're sitting in. So I said the blank group is based on the program of recovery as outlined in the first 164 pages of the big book. We declare our affiliation with Strong Coffee, Area 72, Seattle Intergroup, where funds above and beyond our operating costs go. We are an open meeting having no views or expertise in problems other than alcoholism. It's just an example of like what a group conscience is. And a lot of people at a tradition study I was at last night were saying, you know, we get to vote and we're a democracy, but a business meeting is only once a month. And the culture of the meeting, the culture of the weekly meeting is like way more prominent in people's faces than when we're actually voting about anything. So I think it's important that we as groups talk about what kind of meeting we want to be having. And then we can fine tune it. What else? Moving along. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. And I've also had this one person keeps telling me to read Concept 9. And I found one super interesting sentence in Concept 9. it says that a service leader can put ideas, plans, and principles into action in such a way that other people want to help them. And that's just my interpretation of what it says. So yeah, like we said, I was here. A lot of people were here from a straight ask from someone else that we felt we wanted to help or we're afraid to say no to. Either way, it's cool. We're here talking. So I guess, a question I would pose for a little bit later on is, how do we lead without governing? Also at the back of Tradition 2 in the 12 and 12, there's a really cool excerpt. I'll read it here. It says, "So spoke the group conscience. The group was right and I was wrong. The voice on the subway was not the voice of God. Here was the true voice. Welling up out of my friends, I listened. And thank God I obeyed." So we got Bill. He's up to some usual shenanigans, trying to make some stuff happen. And he's got his group of sponsee cronies that are keeping him in check. And they're like, "Bro, I don't think you should probably try to get paid for alcoholic therapy because it doesn't fit what you've already taught us and what we're trying to do here." And so here was Bill being saved by the group conscience, or maybe AA being saved by the group conscience. What else? So I said, here's a little conclusion, and then I have another excerpt too that I wanted to share. By working the steps and deciding what kind of meeting we want to have, as defined by healthy discussion at regularly held business meetings, trusted servants can lead by example with the inspiration and patience and grace of a higher power. Tradition 2 and Tradition 5 and Concept 9 have spiritual dots connecting them, or are strands of a bigger and thicker rope that help to lead towards a collective awakening. And then I have a really cool quote from another piece of literature. This is Thich Nhat Hanh talking about groups working together. And he says, "We may be clear about the need for change, but we need the courage to express ourselves, even when the majority is going in the opposite direction. We should be supported by our loved ones, by our colleagues who agree with us, because a change of direction can happen only when there is a collective awakening. Individuals and small groups can spark a change in consciousness, even if we are a minority. If we believe we have an insight that can lead us out of difficult situations, we should have the courage to speak out. There are many ways in which we can succeed in speaking out, but not just as an individual, because there may be a number of us who think clearly, but haven't had the opportunity to show our light. Therefore, it is very important to say, 'I am here,' to those who share the same kind of insight. Please raise your voice so that you can come together with others. When we come together, we can voice our concerns strongly and effectively, because collective awakening is the only thing that can change our situations." And if I said any more than that, I'd be making stuff up and lying.
Thank you. The meeting is now open for sharing. And thank you to Dan G for all of that.
I can go next. Mark, alcoholic. Tradition 2 is, there were a couple things that jumped out at me. The first thing that jumped out at me the most, still being relatively new, is just the concept of the group conscience. And because it's an interesting thing. I'm obviously it works, and it's kind of crazy to me that it works, because it doesn't seem like it should work at all. I mean, when's another place where you're like, you know, like your job or whatever, you don't gather the entire company together and in order to decide what new market to go into, and everyone decides what they think, and you know, and then everyone decides together in a, you know, like what if, or like the United States or something like that. It just doesn't seem like it would work to me. But the fact that it does is pretty amazing. And I think I think there's a number of different reasons why it works, but just the simple fact that it does work, and it has worked for what, 70, 80 years and all over the world is pretty phenomenal. And that speaks to a number of different things. I think one thing that in my mind that it speaks to is God's ability to work through a bunch of knuckleheads, a bunch of drunks that get all together and kind of just hash it out. And my sponsor told an example of that I thought was a good example for tradition too, was in the group he was one of the more senior people in the group, and the group had never passed out coins before, and it was just not something that this home group did, and he didn't really want to. It was kind of like hey, well, that's not what we do here. But the group, after a number of different years of being in existence, the group conscience said, hey, yeah, we're going to do this once a month. And it turns out it's been like, you know, a great thing, and people love it. And so that's kind of just a concrete example of, hey, maybe the most, you know, quote unquote senior people in the group didn't want to do it, but when the entire group got together and decided that they did want to do it, it turned into being the right thing to do. And so I thought that was a pretty cool example of tradition too. And I will end with a question for anyone. Is I too read that same example of the early alcoholic Bill saying, hey, I've got this really neat opportunity. And were there 12 traditions at that point? There probably weren't. Were there? This is like one of the examples of what brought them to be, or that's my question. Is it's not like they had all the structure in place to kind of evaluate that decision. And so anyway, I was wondering if anyone knew kind of the timeline on that. That's all I got.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
My name's Lara. I'm an alcoholic.
Lara.
In AA Comes of Age, it talks about in 1937, the financial going was rough at 182 Clinton Street. Several alkies were living with us, most of them paying no board. Lois was still in the department store, and her pay was just about all the money we had. And that is when Charlie from Towns Hospital approached Bill. So that was well before the traditions.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Jennifer, alcoholic. I appreciate the thing that you read with Thich Nhat Hanh, because the collective awakening is very similar to a group conscience, because he's talking about how there's this collective awakening that can happen in the world to make change and peace and make things better. And we have this group conscience on a smaller level in Alcoholics Anonymous that is the same exact thing he's talking about. Like, we as an individual are not supposed to sit there and just, what's the word I'm looking for? Be like totally about ourselves when we come to AA, right? Because it's not about only just us anymore. It's about making sure that AA thrives and continues for the next suffering alcoholic. And so when we come into the rooms of AA, tradition 2, and the group conscience is like an incredibly important part of making that happen, so that we can carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers today, tomorrow, and 50 years down the line. So I really appreciate the tie-in you had with the other spiritual book, because I find that a lot of our principles and traditions that we have in AA are not very different from other people that are trying to change and make good things happen in the world. So that's really all I had to share, because it really hit me as a really good, not analogy, but like another level of understanding for the group conscience. So thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, my name's Joel. I'm an alcoholic.
Joel.
I was thinking about what Mark posed to the group, and I don't know that I can put it all together, but I mean, I'd been talking to my sponsor about this recently, and I mean, some of the traditions, some of the stuff not to do happened before Bill and Bob met. You know, I think it's the Washingtonians affiliated themselves with the abolition, and another group affiliated themselves with suffrage and stuff like that. So there's some aggregate knowledge that happened before Bill and Bob met. And so I think some of the traditions were being used already before they were, you know, I mean, there was some knowledge about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bob was part of the Oxford group. And the Oxford group was not specifically about helping other alcoholics. It was there to help people whoever was suffering, but not just specifically alcoholics. And Bob had been in the Oxford group for years, and he hadn't been able to get sober until he met Bill. And then they were like peas in the pod. They were alcoholics talking to each other, and they were going to go help other alcoholics. And so they did something that the Oxford group hadn't done. They had a primary purpose, but it was specifically to other alcoholics. And I mean, my knowledge is little, but I know that there was some mistakes that had already been made that helped guide us before even Alcoholics Anonymous existed. And then others happened after we formed. But you know, it's pretty amazing. You know, my ideas still suck. Singularly, my ideas are pretty limited. And it amazes me what happens when we reach a group conscience the right way, and it evolves into something way more than I could imagine on my own. And one of the ways we can demonstrate, one of the ways tradition 2 seems to come alive is just through demonstration. Like, we demonstrate how this works, that we when I'm a trusted servant, if I act like I'm serving the group, then I demonstrate to the rest of the group that's the way we do it. You know what I mean? I come to the group and I say, hey, here's all the information I brought back from the intergroup meeting, and I got my own ideas about it, but I want to know what you think. Tell me what you think so I can go back and make an informed decision and vote. You know what I mean? Like, to serve the greater good is a really big deal. And to be a servant means that, well, I don't always get to do what I like. You know, I do what the group wants me to do. And I try to carry the group conscience, whatever it is. And the funny thing is, it happens in the world. It doesn't just happen in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like there's a group conscience out there, and oftentimes I'm presented with it, and it's like, oh, this wasn't my idea, and I don't maybe particularly like it, but I am a trusted servant out there in the world too, and I have a responsibility to do what's good for the greater good as well. That was a lot of blah, blah, blah. But I also appreciated what Dan G said, and some of the stuff that was read about Thich Nhat Hanh and these ideas. But this idea that we can go to the business meeting and anybody can say whatever they want. It's our time. It's my group business meeting. Like I can say whatever it is that it's on my heart. You know what I mean? Like it's a good place for me to say what I need to say. I'm not saying just, to be vicious or anything like that, but it's a place for us to be completely honest and get what's out on our chest, like to be invested in the group and be honest. Like, this is how I feel. This is what I think. And it's the first place that I ever saw the dissenting opinion turn the room around in a way that I'd never seen it happen before. We asked if anybody had a dissenting opinion, and somebody did, and it ended up changing the vote. The vote was almost unanimous in one direction, and they asked for a dissenting opinion. And am I saying it wrong, you guys? And then what happened was we listened to the dissenting opinion, and the group changed their minds. They completely changed their minds. So the group conscience, reached in the right way, led by the right leader, is a pretty amazing thing that I really had no idea about before people in AA showed me, and yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Joel.
Jennifer.
Oh, geez. My name is Lisa. I'm an alcoholic, and the last one. I don't know that I can add too much more to what's been said. I guess to break it apart into two places is, just to remember that, at our roots, we were essentially based off of the religious roots of AA were essentially based off of a Christian organization. However, it's a loving God. We don't all have to believe the same God, which is thank God, because I don't know if I want other people's God, to be honest. I'm quite happy with my own, especially when I'm getting what I want. But to collectively that we all believe in our independent higher powers to come together and form a group conscience and work together. So I'm jumbled, but I'm glad. What I like about tradition too is that it does put God first, and then it puts the leaders essentially second. If you just kind of look at the order, right, and sequence matters. I do sometimes struggle with two things. Every time I hear it read, our leaders are but trusted servants. For whatever reason, I hear it as but, B-U-T-T, servant, but trusted. And I'm like, why are they trusted with buts? Like every single time. I can't unhear it that way. And I hope I didn't just ruin it for you. But where I struggle sometimes is when there are people in service positions that I don't trust. That is where I really struggle. And that is where I have to ask my higher power to come back in and give grace because I have certainly struggled through service positions over the years and not done anything perfect ever. Oh. And I what I like about this is it also says that there's not one person is the boss, right? Which is good, because if we had one person that was the boss, they would inevitably fuck it up for sure. Oh, we're recording. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, I forgot. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything more on this one. That's it. Thank you.
Elise.
Please.
I'm Lara. I'm an alcoholic. I will share a little bit. So I love Comes of Age. AA Comes of Age, and although the majority of what he talks about in AA Comes of Age is the story that he talks about in the 12 and 12 already, but it does focus a lot about old timers in the group, and how they really, how hard it is for old timers to let go of the group and let the group conscience speak something different. It says, I'll just read a couple paragraphs here. It says, but with the passage of time, most of us came up against some hard facts of AA life. We ruefully discovered that the groups, no matter how much they liked and respected us, simply did not want us to be the self-appointed managers of their service and policy affairs forever. Neither would they let us pick our own successors to do the job for them. They wanted to name their own service committees. Again and again, they showed us that the ultimate authority must speak through the groups. For some of us, this was tough to take. Harder still to accept was the now proven fact that the conscience of the group, when properly informed of the facts and issues and principles involved, was often wiser than any one leader, self-appointed or not. We slowly realized that the old-timer frequently was faulty in judgment. Because of his position of assumed authority, he was too often influenced by personal prejudices and interests. With all his experience and good works, there was still nothing infallible about him at all. Does this mean that as old-timers, our usefulness is over? No. Once we old-timers have surrendered to the group conscience, we are pleasantly surprised to find that the groups, when in deep difficulty, will again turn to us for the kind of guidance that only our longer experience can give. I think that that's important. I think that that's an important process that happens. I mean, it's been my experience in my home group, and I've been in other home groups where, there was old timers there that wanted to, remain in control of what happened at the group. And, what I just love about Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's big enough to hold all the crazy personalities within the group. I mean, the group is, so I guess sometimes, especially, it's COVID has really taken some groups to task with a loving God as it may express itself in a group's conscience. I hear story after story after story of groups dividing and having things be really, really difficult as a ramification of this pandemic we're coming out of. But man, I'm just, it's not affecting AA as Alcoholics Anonymous isn't going anywhere. Right? Like that AA as a whole is still intact. And that no matter you know, no matter what happens at my particular home group, that's probably not going to affect AA as a whole. And so, anyway, I'm just super grateful that AA is strong and healthy and cannot be taken down by any too strong of personalities, right? And that, and I heard today that leaders are there to serve. But we do have leaders in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is interesting to me. So, thanks.
Jennifer, alcoholic. I was just thinking, I kind of feel like tradition 2, you know how they talk about in the concepts, checks and balances to keep things in order. I feel like tradition 2 is like part of that system of checks and balances to keep us all like right sized and understand that we're one of many in a group and together we're the same, right? And so I just feel like tradition 2 is one of the strongholds for AA, you know, going forward in any way and in any group. And I really appreciate it. I also have seen it work in my life, like in jobs and in other communities. So, you know, during those moments of it happening, I would never know that it was tradition 2 in action outside of AA. But then when I would come back to AA and I would talk to like somebody in AA about what's going on, they're like, oh, that's tradition 2, or that's, you know, concept 8. And I just find that a lot of times we can learn in AA to bring it to the outside world also. And all of the traditions do that, but I think tradition 2 is vital for the success of AA going forward today. And again, like in the future, for the, making sure they're still here to carry the message to alcoholics. That's all I got. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. Do we have anything else? Doesn't look like it. I would like to thank our readers, Joel and Mark, and the chair, Dan, and the panel for their service. Great seeing all of you today, and we look forward to seeing you next month when we will be covering Tradition 3. We will be closing the meeting with the AA responsibility statement. I am responsible for anyone, anywhere, reaches out for help, want the hand of the AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible.